Hello, this is going to be just a quick little tutorial on Excel for students who really haven't used Excel before. So you'll find Excel to be an extremely valuable tool. Every student I've had, without exception, even those who were the most dedicated to solving their problems by hand, were so grateful for Excel once they got the hang of it. So Excel puts together workbooks, and this is an example of a workbook. And within each workbook are a number of worksheets. This is sheet one, for example. These are called worksheets or spreadsheets. And so you can name these sheets. So I'll just name this, demo one. I can hit enter. And if I want another worksheet, I can click on the plus sign, get another sheet, double click on the title of it to name it, and so forth. So up on the top, you have your normal series of menus like you do in Word or in all of the other Microsoft programs. So you have your home menu with all of these kinds of things, your insert menu. You should have your draw menu. We will be using it in our class. So if you don't have it, you'll want to activate it. I will have a separate demo showing you how to do that. Your page layout, formulas, data, and a number of other things. For now, let's just stick with the home screen and look at some really basic functions. So everything's organized in columns and rows. Of course, the rows are going this way, the columns are going down and indicated by letters. You can always tell where you are, the highlighted cell, because when you click on it, you can see it's listed right here. The column is A, the row is 1, this is row A1. If I click down here, you can see it's row E6. And so that can be a helpful thing, as you'll find later on. So Excel is really good at repeating patterns. One of the really fun things that I learned is it'll detect all different kinds of patterns, including words. So let's say you are gathering data from a bunch of people, from a bunch of students. You can number them, give them an ID. You can number student 1, student 2. And then if you want to continue the pattern, you'll see that down in the lower right-hand corner. So first off, I selected 2 cells here. I just did that by placing my cursor on and dragging it till these 2 cells were highlighted. And then the little magic box is at the lower right corner. I'll hover over it, and you can see that my cursor turns into a heavy black plus sign. And I'll do that again. It's this down in the lower right corner. And when you do this, it'll copy and make a pattern for you. So what you can see is that it just continued to make the pattern going down. We could do the same thing going across. So we could go this way, hover over the magic square, and it'll repeat the pattern. It will repeat days of the week. Let's say we want to gather data for Monday, Tuesday, and we just want to gather data for every single day of the week. We can drag it across and you can see that it repeats the days. We can do it for dates. Let's say September 1. See if it'll recognize it. September 2. There we go. Now we can have it repeat those dates. Let's say you want to go every other day. We'll go down this time. September 1, September 3, September 5. Whoops. And so we can see if it'll repeat that pattern, and you can see it can recognize and repeat a whole bunch of patterns. So you can play around with that if you like. Find as many patterns as you can and see what you can learn from it. So that's just sort of a fun thing to know. That's the magic button. We'll be using that a lot this semester. If you're going to be gathering data, you would often set it up that way. You would write individuals in the first, individuals. Individuals, goodness gracious. And then in the second column, you'd have their scores, whatever those scores might be, whatever it is you're counting. And so I'll just write scores here. And so, you might write person 1, person 2, continue that pattern, and then you can write whatever their scores are. And so maybe the first person got a, 9, and an 8, and a 5, and a 6, and a 9, 8, 4, Whoopsie. Okay, let's look at this error that just happened. You can see here that because I had a date here before, Excel now thinks that this is a date cell. And so it's changing that number that I wrote to a date. The way you fix this is you can see how the cell is highlighted. Now click on the cell and it'll be circled. And then while the cell is highlighted, right click. When you right click, you'll get this menu and go to Format Cells. And go ahead and you need to tell them, nope, this is not a date. This is just a number. And in fact, if we want the number to look like all of the others, which you can see are just numbers without any decimal places, you can change the decimal places to 0, and then that problem is fixed. Okay, so let's give some more data here. There's another one of that same problem, and you can see that now it's repeating that pattern going down, and that's just because I had dates there before. We could go in and format these cells like we did before, or we could just copy the formatting of a cell that we already have. Don't copy the cell itself, but this has the format that I like. So let's go ahead, highlight the cell with a format that I like, click on this little paintbrush. Then you can see the paintbrush is next to the sign, and let's just drag down to highlight those cells, and now they'll all look the way we want to. And let's imagine that this is all we have. We have maybe a 4 and a 1 or something like that. Okay, now let's imagine that we want to do some calculations with this. So let's say we want to find out the total of all these scores. Let's say these are pounds of piñon nuts picked up off the last fall product, and we want to know what is the total. So let's write total here, and I'll show you a few different ways of doing it. Let's see. Let's not start here. I'm going to come back and show you that. Let's start with something basic about formulas. So first off, you'll notice that whatever you type here comes up in this, which is called the formula bar. This formula bar can be really useful. It'll tell you what the formula is that produces the answer in a cell. So let's look at how this works. Now, whenever you want Excel to do some math for you, you start with the equal sign. And that's your clue to Excel that you want it to do some math. And so let's just do a simple math problem. Let's do 25 plus 25 equals 25 plus 25. We should get 50. Let's look at what happens. We do have 50. So we have 50 as the answer. What was the formula? That's right up here. If we change the formula, 25 plus 30, we get a different answer, and the formula always shows up here. So that's the benefit of the formula bar. You can subtract. We can do equals, 35 minus 16. We get 19, and you can see the formula here. We can multiply. When we multiply in Excel, we use the asterisk. So let's go 5 asterisks for the time sign. 15. Hit enter. We get 75. That's correct. And you can look at the formula there. And we can divide. We always use the slash to divide. So let's go equals 60 divided by 12. Hit enter. You can see we have this date thing happening again. So let's use the paintbrush. Let's grab the cell that's formatted properly, click on that paintbrush, and let's just highlight all of these cells in case that comes up again. And now we can click in that cell, we can see the answer in the cell, and we can see the formula in the formula bar. So that's some basic functions. We can also square things. So squaring is just multiplying a number by itself. So let's first just multiply equals 4 times 4. You know that that's the square, equals 16. We could get that same answer by using a different way. We can use, I'll show you here, equals 4. We want 4 squared. You can use the uppercase of the digit 6 on your keyboard, which is that little caret or an upward pointing arrow. So hit shift and hit the 6, and then you can just put 2, and that means you want to square it. And so that's another way to do a square. And finally, we can do a square root. A square root is, of course, the when you have a number, how many on each edge does it take to make it square? And so let's again start with that equal sign. And then let's say we don't quite know how to get a square root. I'm going to tell you what it is right now. In fact, I'll do it. It's SQ for square, RT for root. Then we put parentheses because it asks us what is it we want to square root. And let's say we want the square root of 122. That's in parentheses. And we can get 11.04. And you can see there's the formula and there's the answer. But let's imagine that you, someone who's new to Excel, let me get 121 so we get a nice round number, actually. There. Let's say that you're new in Excel and you've forgotten that abbreviation for square root and you need the square root. What you can do is go click on this FX, which stands for function, and let's insert a function. It types the equal cell in your formula bar, but then it gives you this little prompt box so you can look for what it is you need and you can tell it square root. And hit go. And there it tells you 3 different kinds and it tells you what they are. So IM's SQRT returns the square root of a complex number. We don't need that. Square root just returns the square root of a number. That's what we need. If you hit OK, it'll enter in exactly what we have up here. And if you type your number here, 121, it inserts it into the parentheses. So this is what the formula looks like, but this is the nice, easy interface in case you forgot what it is to write down to get a certain answer. And we get the very same thing. And if we type it here, we typed out the formula. And here we used the wizard, this formula wizard, to get it. Same answer, same thing. So that's a little bit of the basics about formula. Now, if we want to add up a whole bunch of cells, we could do it like this. We could go equals 9 plus 8 plus 5, and we could type all those numbers in. But what a hassle. What a lot of work. Another way that we can do it is we can type in equals sum, because the sum is what adds a bunch of numbers together. And we could type in the corresponding cells of the numbers we want to add. So I can see that we want to add B2, so I'll type B2. And we want to add all together, so I'm going to put a colon, which means all the way through, to B13. Whoops, B13. We can type our closing parenthesis and hit enter, and we'll get 64. But sometimes that can be tedious too, especially if you have a large database. And so what you can do to make it even easier is you can just type equals sum, parenthesis, and let's just select the cells we want in here. So now I'm in the middle of my formula. My cursor is inside the parenthesis. I'm just going to place this white plus sign, and I'm going to keep holding my left mouse button down while I drag to the end of that range. You can see that now it filled in B2 to B13 for us. We can just hit enter. We should put the parenthesis, but Excel generally will do that for us. And we can hit enter and we get the same thing. So that's a good way that you can do these kinds of cells. You can also, I don't use this very often, so let's see if I can get this right. You can also use your magic box. Let's see if it'll sum it for us. I can't remember. No, it doesn't. What did it do for us? I don't know what it did. I think I have no idea what it did there. But there is a way to do it that way too. Let me just see. I don't think I can show this to you because I don't use the functionality that way as much as I should. But in any case, I've showed you the basics. So you would just type in equals sum, opening parenthesis, and let's get all of these. And one other way to do it is to use this sum sign up here. This is an uppercase Greek letter sigma, uppercase sigma. And if you just click on this, it will sum up all the numbers until it comes to a blank space. And so you can see that it typed in by itself B2 through B13 and summed those up. So that's a little bit of the basics. One thing that you will be learning when you learn how to make frequency tables in Excel through a different video is how to use the dollar sign to hold steady on a cell that you want to work with. And those skills are all taught in later lessons, so I won't worry too much about that. I'll teach you more about Excel as we go forward. And believe me, I know a lot about Excel, but every time I take a new little class that uses Excel or do anything, I learn more. This is a remarkable tool. You'll be very glad that you've learned it. And that's the end of this short little initial demo about Excel.